When it comes to crime dramas, it is a genre that we love no matter what medium they are in. We love the glamorization of it along with the raw and real characters that take center stage. There's a sense of loyalty between the characters along with the risk of betrayal. Throughout the gaming medium, we have seen many great examples, especially from Rockstar's GTA series, along with some quality movie tie-in games like The Godfather. But I would like to invite you to take a look back at a classic crime drama from an underrated series that was inspired by some of the best. In 1998, a relatively small studio of 40 developers aimed to capture the tone and setting of the Italian mob during the 1930s. The game wanted to remain respectful and authentic to the time period, and with that came an element of realism to both the story and the gameplay. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you a look back at Mafia. In 1999, Illusion Softworks released a tactical first-person shooter called Hidden and Dangerous. This was a World War II shooter. The game was a commercial success for the studio. Following this, the developers wanted to take their studio in a different direction. They wanted to capture the atmosphere and spirit from classic gangster movies for their next project. In the early stages of the game, the main narrative was going to center around a cop tackling the mob, but through development, the writer decided to change the main character from a cop to being part of the Italian mob. Work began on Mafia in 1998, and their studio started with 5 developers and grew to nearly 40. They wanted to focus on making an action-adventure title that would be played from the third-person perspective. The game would be focused on its narrative while giving the player a large city to explore their story. The developers took elements from Chicago and New York to make their digital city. They decided on setting their game during the 1930s. The goal was to include all the streets and structures that one would expect from a big city like this. Realism was an element that was important to the team early on, so much so they worked on making an involved damage modeling system to heighten the car chases. This realism spread to other areas to ensure that Mafia would feel authentic to the time it was paying tribute to. Traffic laws needed to be observed, and if ignored, the local law enforcement would track you down. The player would be up against many opponents, from other thugs to rival gangsters. The main character would not be a one-man army, but rather a significant foot soldier in his family. As such, he would need to fight tactically to beat the enemy encounters. The focus of the game was going to be on its story, characters, and missions. The story aimed to provide a quality gangster tale that was fueled by its inspirations. The developers would record audio for their characters and then listen to that audio to use analog joysticks to control the movements of the characters to match the audio. The developers remarked that this was a very time-consuming process. During development, Illusion Softworks aimed to have competitive multiplayer included within the final build of the game. There would be traditional modes like Deathmatch and Capture the Flag. But as the development continued, they decided to drop the multiplayer component altogether to ensure that they nailed the single-player story. This talented team of 40 worked on this title for several years. They were trying to create something that paid tribute to a film genre that they loved and wanted to bring that quality to the gaming medium. On August 29th, 2002, Mafia: The City of Lost Heaven was released to the world. The story starts out with our main character Tommy meeting up with a cop at a restaurant. Tommy offers the cop names, dates, and accounts related to the Salieri family. Tommy asks for protection for him and his wife and kid. The cop agrees as long as Tommy tells him everything he knows and that he will testify in court. Then the story shifts to the past to show Tommy as a cab driver. Some injured members of the Salieri family make him drive away from their rival gangsters. Tommy drops off the members at the Salieri's bar. He is given money and offered a job to come work for them if he wants. The following day, Tommy is attacked by the same gangsters that were after the Salieri's men. Tommy makes it to the bar and he is safe, and the chasing gangsters are killed. Then Tommy takes that opportunity to join the Salieri family. Tommy completes a bunch of missions for the family, and then one night the bar's cook, Luigi, asks Tommy to walk his daughter home to keep her safe. Then the next day, Tommy and Polly go after a bunch of street thugs to stop them from causing chaos. This results in some of them getting shot. One of the people who was killed is the son of the city councilor, a friend of the mayor, and the Morello's accomplice. The Morello family are rivals to the Salieris. Tommy is then tasked with a mission to kill a girl who is talking too much about the family. When Tommy encounters her, it turns out that it's Sarah's friend Michelle. He decides to let her live as long as she leaves the city. Morello has the cops after the Salieris, and this resulted in Frank giving the family's account books to the cops. Tommy is tasked with getting the books back and killing Frank. Tommy finds Frank and finds out that Frank had no choice since the cops had his wife and daughter. Tommy allows Frank to live. Tommy then completes some more missions for the family, and then tensions between the Morello family is growing. This results in the Salieris focusing solely on the Morello family. After this, Tommy starts having doubts with the family. On one job, Tommy and Paul find out that the Don knows more than he is letting on, and the both of them are feeling used. So Tommy and Paulie decide to do a side job for themselves. It is revealed that Sam betrayed both of them and that the family found out about Michelle and Frank. This results in Paulie dying and then Tommy killing Sam. Then this brings us back to the present, with Tommy giving the cops all the information he has, which results in many of the Salieri members going to jail. Tommy and his wife and child end up in protective custody, but the Salieris find out where he is and kill Tommy. I really love how Mafia starts. The intro sequence is slow, impressive, and engaging. The camera slowly shows us different areas of the city and its outside areas. All of these spots will have relevance as you experience the narrative. The slow camera movements lets us take in all the details about the environments. From the different locations to the people just going about their lives, we are being gradually introduced to this world. The music paired with the visuals creates an atmosphere of mystery along with this odd feeling of being welcomed to a new place. The camera work is impressive, even by today's standards. I really love how it bobs and weaves when you're in the tunnels. I like how this sequence takes a while before we even focus in on our main character, Tommy. When it comes to Mafia, I think a big reason why people love this game so much is because of its story. There are certain aspects about games that can age very well, and a great story is one of those. As you experience the narrative, you can tell how the developers were heavily inspired by great gangster films. Mafia is inspired by classic gangster stories, and the execution succeeds in creating an original story that respects the genre, along with not being a copycat of the stories that inspired it. And at the center of this story is Tommy. He is really why this game works so well. In Mafia, we only ever see the events through Tommy, and his added narration provides more context on how he felt during those events. I really like how this narration is built into the narrative because Tommy is sitting down with a cop detailing his time with the Salieri mob. By having the narrative start in the present and the bulk of the story being told through flashbacks through Tommy's retelling of the events, we start the game off with a lot of questions as to how Tommy got to where he got to today. Why is he going to the cops, and why did he join the mob in the first place? This allows the narrative to show us two versions of Tommy, the one with the experience from working with the mob and the other showing a more green person just joining up. But the narration always keeps us in Tommy's head. We know that since Tommy is telling the story, he cannot die during most of the game, but we do not know the fate of all the characters that he comes in contact with. Tommy is our eyes and ears into the mob world. Tommy is a compelling character. He starts out as a taxi driver working an honest job, and then the mob world is thrust upon him. The game makes a point that he has no interest in crime at the start of the game, but once he is up against a wall with gangsters chasing him, he seeks the safety in his recent allies of the Salieri family. Tommy changes his tune once he sees what a life with the mob can give him. This is mostly implied, but I think Tommy likes the notion of community and how he can get that from his mob family. He finds himself trusting Paulie and Sam along with other members of the family. Dangerous favors are asked of Tommy, but they also provide him with great rewards. While we only get one mission with Sarah, it is one of my favorites from the story. In this mission, we see Tommy walking Sarah home, and then he needs to protect her from some thugs. This leads to the two of them forming a romance. The dialogue is kinda cheesy, but I like the cute romance between the two of them. There's chemistry there, and I have two complaints about the use of Sarah. I wish she had more screen time. Sarah and Tommy's kid are two of the main reasons why Tommy wants to get out of the mob life. I think we should have had more scenes scenes with the two of them together showing how important they are to Tommy. We are only ever told about this. I also wish that the romance between Sarah and Tommy was developed more. It is kind of rushed in the main game. While the different missions, double crosses, and other mob jobs are very interesting for the story, for me, the story got even more interesting when they started to plant seeds of doubt in Tommy about how maybe this isn't the life he wants. The game provides many examples of this throughout the story. When Tommy assassinates the gangsters, he takes a moment to reflect on his actions and is a bit disgusted in himself. In one mission, Tommy is told to assassinate this woman who is revealing secrets about the family. It is revealed to be Sarah's friend, Michelle. Tommy makes the choice to not kill Michelle and let her go freely as long as she leaves the city. This is the first time he is going against a direct order from the family. At around the midpoint of the story, we see Tommy questioning whether to have Sarah in his life because of what he does for a living. Polly tells Tommy that you have to keep your work out of your home life. I think it is implied here that Tommy finds it dishonest to not let his potential wife into his work and what he does. Tommy is tasked with killing Frank, and he opts to let Frank escape because he has a wife and child. There are other examples like Tommy feeling regret for letting an innocent woman die while trying to fight their rival gang. These little events help to show how Tommy was swept up into the Mafia lifestyle, but how this may not be for him. He sees how this bond was so strong before, but now it can be broken in an instance and you could end up dead. The loyalty and community he once saw is gone, and now he just sees backstabbing and betrayal. He questions whether he can really trust anyone in the family anymore. This results in him and Polly doing this side job that eventually leads to Polly's death, and Tommy being targeted by his own mob family. Sam turns on both of them and reveals to Tommy that they found out about Michelle and Frank. Tommy's good deeds eventually come back to hurt him. While the ending is a sad one, it is one that is very fitting for the genre. Tommy took the opportunity to use all the knowledge he gained over the years to try and put most of the family behind bars, but the Salieri's ended up finding out where he was and then killing him. This was bittersweet because our beloved character died, but he was able to keep his wife and child safe along with putting many dangerous criminals behind bars. I really enjoyed experiencing Tommy's story. He is a character who may make some questionable decisions, but he has some integrity and he sees through the magic of the Mafia lifestyle, and he takes ownership to try and protect the ones he cares about. While this is an older title, the voice acting is mostly good. It does have its fair share of poor performances and some bad lines of dialogue, but the game is mostly well written. I want to praise the camera work as well. The variety in the camera work and the camera movements kept many of the cutscenes engaging. At its core, you can see the similarities to other movies, but the game is full of great execution, and this is why it is considered one of the great classic game stories. Now, the story of Mafia is one of the aspects about it that feels timeless, but the gameplay is a mixture of many good ideas with some dated execution. For starters, the driving has a bit of a learning curve to it. You can learn how to drive in the tutorial, or you can sort of learn with a trial by fire in the first mission. The following mission has you just working as a taxi driver, and this lets you get comfortable with the driving along with the city that you will be driving in. This section goes on for far too long, but I feel like this was done on purpose. I like that it's supposed to convey the boring nature of doing a normal 9-to-5 job to contrast with a more interesting mob life. There are many elements where the game shoots for having realism within it by giving off this feeling of being authentic. The game has many examples of this. While driving, you need to obey the traffic lights and your speed, or the cops will pull you over and give you a ticket. This is pretty neat the first few times it happens, but it does get annoying throughout the entire game. I love when a game aims to be authentic to the look and feel of the time, but realism can potentially cause annoyances to the player and can hurt the gameplay experience. With the tickets, I wish that there was some larger consequence to them than just pulling you over. There's no form of economy in the game, so each time you need to pay a fine, you're not really losing anything. These fines would hold more weight if you could use money that you earned to pay them off, but the game just uses them as speed bumps to slow you down and drag things out. There are even situations where you need to wait for a drawbridge to go back up, or you can try to jump over it. When the cops are not in your way, I actually enjoyed driving many of the classic cars. When you aren't driving, you will have a few situations where you need to get into some fistfights.
Help! We're being attacked!
Break your face!
Help us, somebody, please!
Everybody in, quick!
This is one of the clumsy and clunky areas of the game. You get different melee weapons like bats and brass knuckles, but none of them are that fun to use. Hitting your foes is messy, and sometimes you will be in a fistfight with an AI helping you out, and it's really easy to accidentally hit them. And if your ally dies, you need to go back to your last checkpoint. Thankfully, most of the action takes place within the shootouts.
Everybody.
God damn it, I need ammo. Come here, we have a little problem. Help.
The shooting is still enjoyable, but it comes with its own issues. You get a very large variety of weapons from different shotguns, handguns, and the awesome Tommy gun. The recoil is insanely aggressive. More than 2 shots from a Tommy gun will have you looking at the sky. This takes some getting used to, which will have you firing the automatics with single shots. The bullet damage is really inconsistent. Headshots will not always kill an enemy, and sometimes an enemy can take 3 shots or even 10 shots to die. One element of realism for the shooting is that when you reload, you will discard all of the remaining ammo left in your current magazine. As someone who likes to reload to have full ammo at all times, this took some getting used to. Health does not regenerate on its own, you must find medicine cabinets for more health. Sometimes missions will have an ally with you, and these guys like to walk in front of you even if you're shooting, and if they die, you go back to the last checkpoint. What I did like about the shooting was how each encounter felt deadly. I wish the game operated a bit better because the game is essentially a cover shooter without a cover system. You will hug walls and try to peek out to kill as many enemies as you can. This will have you moving from left to right a bit, and if you double tap these buttons it will cause you to roll and you can put yourself in danger. I do appreciate the attempt at realism here, I just wished it was consistently used. If I lose all of my current ammo when I reload, why does it take an inconsistent amount of shots to kill someone? The structure of the levels is deserving of praise. The stakes continue to grow throughout the entire game. The first half does not have many shootouts, and this slowly grows throughout the game as the story lends itself to more of these encounters. With this build-up, when the action happens, it feels well-earned, like a well-made movie or TV show. You do not get numb to the violence, but rather it becomes this explosion that helps the story. Another thing I liked was how the missions will have you start with a small amount of equipment, and you will find more throughout your missions. This makes you feel like you are adapting to the situations, then going in armed to the teeth. I also appreciated how many of the encounters have some variability to them, with you opting to use different tactics on your enemies. The AI can be a bit silly and dumb at times, and while stuff like this can break the immersion, it also provides some decent laughs. The checkpoints are mostly good, with a few spots being too far apart. There's a really good amount of detail here as well. Shell casings can be seen on the ground after firing, along with being able to shoot and damage different parts of the car. A majority of the game will have you driving to one place to watch a cutscene and then driving to another for another cutscene. I do want to note that the open world is not used like many open world games. The open world is there for you to drive around in and steal extra cars, but there aren't side missions or activities to complete. While I would have liked some side stuff to do, I have to praise the commitment to the focus on its story. The open world is used as a space to tell the story rather than something to truly explore. There are aspects of the gameplay that I did like, even with its dated feel, but what holds it all together is the well-done story. The gameplay is dated, but it has some interesting ideas that are worth experiencing. Mafia is a classic story for the gaming medium. As I said before, many timeless games have aspects about them that stand the test of time, and it's a true achievement. Mafia's story is a timeless experience. The narrative captures the traditional elements found in classic gangster films while delivering an original story that is worth experiencing. Tommy is a compelling main character as he is a member of the mob that slowly begins to doubt his involvement with them and being a part of that life. He eventually takes ownership of his actions and tries to keep the people he cares about safe. But like many people in these stories, he does not get to make it out alive. The gameplay is a combination of interesting and fun mechanics mixed with some frustration. I enjoyed many of the efforts to add realism to the game, but they were also sources of frustration. What was appreciated was the amount of detail presented within the game, and also with how deadly the encounters were. Mafia 1 set the foundation for an underrated series and has earned its spot as a gaming classic.